Formula One has a habit of turning manufacturer announcements into courtroom verdicts. The moment a new name enters the sport, timelines start getting treated like destinies. Careers get mapped out in speculation. Decisions get assumed before they're even considered. Panic fills every gap between official statements. That's exactly what happened when people noticed how different Ford's Formula One timeline looks compared to Audi's, and immediately connected it to Max Verstappen's future. And yet, Max hasn't reacted at all. By the end of this, it becomes clear that Ford's F1 timeline doesn't tell us where Max Verstappen is going. It tells us something more revealing: how he thinks when the future isn't settled, and why he doesn't rush to meet uncertainty halfway. Why timelines create pressure in Formula One. In Formula One, timelines aren't neutral. They arrive alongside regulation changes, new power unit rules, and unfamiliar performance landscapes. With that comes uncertainty, not just about cars, but about relevance. Drivers feel it first, because timelines don't just define development cycles, they define windows of opportunity, risk, and career leverage. When the future looks unclear, pressure builds to secure position early, to choose correctly before others do, to avoid being left behind. That's why timelines create anxiety in this sport. Every decision carries weight when the competitive order might reset overnight. Young drivers rush to prove themselves before the window closes. Established names hedge their bets, weighing loyalty against survival. Team principals play chess with contracts, trying to lock in talent before the market shifts. The clock doesn't just tick, it dictates strategy, forcing everyone to move before they're ready. The Ford vs Audi contrast. This is where Ford and Audi enter the conversation. Audi committed early and visibly, making their intentions known with clarity and conviction. The messaging was clear, the intent was front-loaded, and confidence was woven directly into the announcement. Ford's involvement, by contrast, looks fundamentally different. It's phased, delayed, and structured around gradual integration rather than immediate transformation. The important thing to recognize is restraint, not as weakness, but as strategic choice. This isn't about judging which approach is better. It's about understanding how uncertainty enters the environment when timelines aren't symmetrical, when commitments don't align, when one manufacturer moves decisively while another moves cautiously. That asymmetry in approach and timing is precisely what people immediately projected onto Max Verstappen and his future. How most drivers react to uncertainty. When futures feel unstable, most drivers react in predictable ways. They position themselves publicly, apply subtle contract pressure, and manage narratives through media. The goal isn't performance, it's reassurance. Drivers seek confirmation that they'll still matter when the next cycle begins, that they'll be aligned with the right project early enough to benefit from it. Uncertainty invites movement, and silence feels risky. In this environment, visibility becomes currency. Every statement, every calculated appearance, every carefully timed interview serves a purpose beyond the present moment. It's about maintaining relevance, securing leverage, and ensuring that when decisions are made behind closed doors, their name remains part of the conversation. The paddock becomes a chessboard where perception often matters more than lap times. How Max Verstappen does not react. Max Verstappen does none of this. There's no public concern, no commentary on timelines, no pressure applied through interviews or implication. That absence isn't avoidance, it's method. He doesn't negotiate emotionally with the future. He doesn't treat uncertainty as something that needs immediate resolution. Where others rush to define tomorrow, Max stays anchored in today. That behavioral difference is the signal. It reveals a fundamental divergence in how elite competitors process pressure and ambiguity. While his peers use media to manage narrative and create leverage, Verstappen operates in silence, refusing to engage with speculation or feed the machinery of public expectation. His stillness isn't passive. It's strategic, a deliberate choice to let performance speak where others rely on words. What Max actually optimizes for. Max doesn't optimize for headlines, early guarantees, or perceived security. He optimizes for operational clarity. That means standards today, execution now, and understanding what exists rather than speculating on what might. When clarity is missing, he doesn't fill the gap with assumption. He waits for reality to form. That's not passivity, it's discipline. He knows that premature commitments create technical debt. He knows that chasing certainty before the ground is stable leads to rework, not progress. So he moves deliberately, anchors decisions in what's proven, and builds systems that hold up under scrutiny, not just sentiment. Why this approach makes sense. Long-term projects in Formula One rarely follow their initial plans. Early confidence fades, structures evolve, and performance reshuffles expectations. The sport is full of examples where the loudest certainty arrived first and dissolved fastest. Max behaves like someone who understands that. Instead of committing emotionally to promises, he waits for evidence. Instead of reacting to potential, he observes trajectory. That patience isn't indecision, it's calibration. The pattern across his career. This isn't new behavior. Across his career, Verstappen has rarely rushed decisions. During moments of major uncertainty, he's often been silent rather than reactive. He lets performance force clarity instead of chasing it. Stability, in his framework, isn't created by announcements. It's created by execution. When execution stays strong, options remain open. When performance drops, no timeline saves you. That pattern keeps repeating. What this tells us about his future. This is where boundaries matter. This isn't about predicting Max Verstappen's next team. That would miss the point entirely. What we can observe is how he behaves when the future isn't clearly defined. He allows timelines to mature, waits for projects to reveal themselves, and responds to reality, not anticipation. That approach reduces regret and preserves leverage without requiring noise. The long-term thinking revealed. So, what does Ford's F1 timeline actually reveal? Not where Max Verstappen will be, but how he thinks when the future isn't clear. He doesn't rush, doesn't posture, doesn't try to outguess the sport. He lets uncertainty exist until it becomes usable information. That's long-term thinking in a sport obsessed with immediate certainty. Formula One panics about timelines. Max Verstappen doesn't. While the sport fixates on the next regulation cycle, he stays focused on the current lap because that's the only place where clarity can actually be created. And that's what Ford's timeline really tells us about how Max Verstappen thinks long-term. If you're Orange Army, you've seen this pattern before. Share this with another Max fan who understands that patience in Formula One isn't hesitation, it's control.